Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today, we are joined by Kristen, who is a birth mom who placed her son back in 2008. She recently had a visit with him, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about what that was like to go for a pretty long pause to then revisit open adoption. So welcome, Kristen.
Hi, everybody.
So, Kristen, you placed your son in 2008. Is that right?
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about what life looked like for you after you placed and kind of where you went on your path in life over the last several years in terms of you, your family, and your connection to open adoption.
Well, after I placed my son, things were still pretty rough for me. Not having a place to really live and kind of having issues with, my family and stuff like that, and not having a support group like I should have. As the years progressed, though, I was able to get my own place and work on, finding stable employment and everything. And I'm thankful, that there was people there to help me find the right resources for myself so I could, better my life for, me and my children. And I know at the time I was really scared about the whole thing, and things have looked up. You never think that there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, but there certainly was. Obviously, I had another child. After they started growing up a little bit, life was still a little rocky for me, but I finally, it's almost like it was a light switch, and things turned around very positively for me. I was able to save money and get myself a better vehicle on the road and, do the things that I was been longing to do. And I was able to be supportive of my kids a little better. Because in the beginning, the reason why I did place is because it was a very hard financial struggle, trying to figure out things with the boys and how I was going to survive with them. And, most people, they look at it like, oh, why would you have kids if, you can't afford them? And, honestly, yes, I did have my children, but I did the responsible thing with all of them, I feel, after being able to see him at the visit and kind of, discussing those things. And I was really surprised that he took really well to it. He gave me a huge hug when he saw me, so I was super excited about that. But since then, obviously I got married, and now I have a bigger family, and I really, really enjoy how life has turned out for me and all of my children.
So in 2008, when you placed your son, you were parenting two boys at the time. Is that right?
I was parenting one at the time, but then I had one in 2012, which would have been, that's my youngest. It was literally, I had my oldest in 2007, and then, my middle child, I had him in 2008, and then my youngest in 2012. So It was a little rocky, like I said, trying to find my place and hoping that I could find somebody that would be there for me. But, sadly, sometimes that doesn't always work out the way we want it to. And I'm thankful now because I have a husband that accepts my children for who they are, and I couldn't ask for anything better in my life.
And I do want to jump into what it was like to have this visit after several years of being away. But up until that point, what would you say in terms of your contact to your son or to open adoption? Had you had any visits? Did you get pictures and letters? Or had you completely taken a step back and put a pause on the open adoption for several years?
I did get pictures and letters, and then at some point I did tell my caseworker, Stephanie, who's, amazing, and I love working with you guys. I did let her know, I really just need some time to process this, because and I'm thankful for the adoptive family because they kind of, helped me explain the situation, which was so much better. I've always felt like, I have a great connection with them. And, even when we did meet up again, they're like, we know that you had a rough situation. And they were very understanding of that. And I am so thankful that they were.
That brings a really good point to the table, because most often people don't think about like what is the birth parent going through over the years, right? So when you choose to take a pause, it could be for a variety of reasons. And it sounds like for you, you had some things that were going on in your life. You had another child, you were in a new relationship, you ended up getting married, you had to kind of figure yourself out financially, you got a car, you got a job, stable housing. You were kind of getting yourself together before you were ready to kind of embark on that relationship again. And that's okay. That's part of open adoption. It's like, a roller coaster. You go up and down with things. And I think it's important for our audience to recognize that we have to honor and respect birth parents and the journey that they're on, and not feel like if they take a pause or a step back, doesn't mean they don't want to, eventually be a part of the child's life or something bad's going on. It's just something that they're dealing with. And I think that that's really, really important, because when there isn't consistency, sometimes families get worried and they're like, well, if they're not going to have any contact with us, well, we're just going to wash our hands of open adoption. And for you, you had an amazing family who was respectful of your journey. Talk to us about what it was like to have that recent visit with your son, with the adoptive family, what you talked about, introducing your kids to them. Talk to us about that.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. When we got there first, I was very, very anxious, and I didn't know how, obviously he was going to respond. But I am thankful, like we talked about, whenever, I did come back into contact with him, I was still getting pictures and letters. I did reach out and I let him know kind of like how I was feeling and what was going on, because a lot of people don't talk about it, but postpartum depression and depression itself is a very hard thing whenever you're dealing with this. And I really, really needed the help to get through that. And it may have taken me longer to do so, but I really wanted to be the best person I could be for him and my other two children.
That is so, so true. And I try to tell families when they call in and say, like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Why did she kind of go MIA on us? Because sometimes birth parents don't even have the ability to connect and give an update and say, listen, I'm going through something. I just need a break. Sometimes they just have to deal on their own. And we always try to counsel adoptive parents on, like, you're feeling this way, and I get that, but you don't know what's going on in their world. And you just have to be respectful of that space, not try to understand it or fix it or get involved. Like, you just got to let them do what they're doing and hope and pray that they come back at some point. And that's really all that can happen. Now, when you met up with your son, what were some of the conversations that you guys had? What are some of the things you talked about?
Well, so we talked about kind of how his life has been since I did the whole adoption. And first thing he did, he gave me a huge hug, and he was like, I missed you. And I'm like, so you do remember me? And he's like, never forget that smell. And I was like, do I stink? Kind of joking about it. And he says, no, you smell like vanilla. Oh. So I was like, you really remember that? And so it took me back, but at the same time, it felt so warm that I could give him a hug, and I gave the adoptive family a hug, and they were so happy to see me, and the boys were happy to see him. We talked about how they're doing in school, and, we talked about some of the difficulties he was having in school. His brothers were sharing with him, like, hey, you don't have to feel alone. We are too. So it was nice to talk about that. He also talked about this book that every picture that I have sent to him, he has in a book. He also asked me for pictures, and I had to look for them. I don't have contact with his father, but I had a few friends of mine that really were like, hey, we'll help you out. And they got me some information for him that I could share with him to help him out. So for him, I was trying to do that for him, and he was really happy. Like, first he was a little standoffish, and I understand that, but he opened up so much with us. We were talking about like our next visit, possibly going fishing, because we all like doing that. And it just really, we could have probably sat there for hours, and I feel like we were, because when we went to go to eat, plans did change because it rained, but where we met was a good place halfway in between. And I was very thankful that, they did that. They didn't have to do that, but they did. And we both drove the halfway point, and we figured that was a great halfway point. And it was kind of ironic in a sense, because when I originally signed the documents, I went to the Applebee's around the area here, and we ended up going to an Applebee's a little further closer to them. So it was like we brought back memories. And they actually did another picture. We kind of reenacted the picture of my belly, and they were holding my belly. And it was so great, because the adoptive family got pictures with me. They got pictures, with the boys. They got pictures of themselves with the boys, me with the boys, and we got ones together. And, we were just asking how everybody was doing. Found out a lot of things were even going on in their lives, and I asked about those things, and we really shared a lot, and everybody just really hit it off, and it went really well. I just encourage anybody, regardless of how much time it takes you, reach out. As much as people might be scared to say, oh well, they might be this way. I am so fortunate. I feel like I'm literally like one of their family, and they treat me as such. So I really know that I picked a great family, and to hear it from him, to know that he said, hey, you did a great job with who you picked for me. And I was like, I hope that it was really out of love. And he knows it. And he also said, you really encouraged me to want to help other people.
Well, it sounds like just overall a really great story. I mean, he's 15 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And have all these wonderful connections and conversations, and just to be so honest and vulnerable. And it's almost like you're an extension of family. And
Mm-hmm.
it may be a little different than others, but it's important to you guys. And we're happy to see that your triad truly is working, and your son is doing wonderful in life. So that's great
Mm-hmm.
to hear. Well, again, as Kristen said, if anyone out there is anxiously worried about trying to build a connection even years later, do it. Reach out to your local office, talk with a social worker, connect with either the adoptive family or the birth parent, because it can still happen. Even years later, you can still build that relationship. And we're just so happy for you, Kristen. Keep in tune with us about everything that's going on in all of your kids' lives.
You definitely will.
Yeah, and we're grateful that you could share your story. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Continue to tune in to future episodes.